What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. It's Thursday. Time to go game by game, talk about all the players I'd be starting and sitting this week. First up, tonight's game, Ravens at Dolphins, 50.5-point total. Ravens, 7.5-point road favorites. For the Ravens, they get Lamar back. That was desperately needed. Pulled off the win last week, but of course the Ravens are much better with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. They're only 2-6, but given how bad the AFC North is, they're only 2 games back from first place, even with that record. The Dolphins are a plus matchup for all positions besides wide receiver, but I wouldn't let that deter you from playing Zay Flowers. He's got like a 30%, I think it's just below a 30% target share on the season. Next closest on the team is Mark Andrews at 16%, so it's Zay Flowers and kind of everyone else in the passing game. Lamar, Henry, Zay, all must starts in my eyes, and I think you can stream Mark Andrews. Odds are by this point, you haven't been using him. You've probably figured something else out, and I don't really know if I'd go back to Andrews right now. If it comes out, this week he has a good game, he commands like 6 or 7 targets, he catches a touchdown, he looks good, the usage is there, and like Isaiah likely doesn't step up and get more usage, sure, but I'm viewing him as pretty touchdown or bust, and I feel like over time, Isaiah Likely's usage will ramp up, and that's going to directly impact Mark Andrews. So he's someone you can always play because he could always score a touchdown. He could always score 2 touchdowns. He's still a good player, but the volume expectation isn't that good. I think you're mostly just sticking with the big 3 this week. Then for the Dolphins side, Baltimore is a great matchup, hence the 50.5-point total here. And that's a high total, especially for a Thursday game, which can sometimes be lower scoring. You're looking at a fairly easy decision, I would say, on the Miami side. We still don't have Darren Waller, and so, Achane, Waddle, they're going to get the vast majority of the usage this week. You probably don't need convincing on Achane. I think everyone's obviously going to play him. But Waddle, we talked about this last week, right? He had 110 and 95 yards in the 2 games that didn't have extreme wind conditions leading up to last week. And then he has 99 yards last week. So, or at least, of course, since Tyreek Hill went down. So in these normal games, he's pushing 95 or more receiving yards. I mean, I don't really see how you bench him. He's the focal point of the passing attack. If Miami wants to keep this game even remotely close this weekend or tonight, he's going to need, 80 plus receiving yards. Like, I don't see him having, 50 receiving yards unless, and like the game plays out relatively close, unless like Lamar gets hurt again or Achane has 200 yards. Like, they're going to need Waddle to have a good game. So I would play him. I think in deeper full PPR leagues, you can consider Malik Washington, just because, if they're playing down, right, they're projected to score or they're projected to lose by like 7 to 8 points, but you could see them down by 14, 17 points at some point. So if that happens and they're throwing the ball a ton and we've got a fairly attackable defense on the Baltimore side, he could rack up 4, 5, maybe get lucky and have 6 receptions. They're not going to really go anywhere. They're going to be close to the line of scrimmage, but I could see that happening. And in full PPR, if you had a lot of teams on bye, you had injuries, and you're like, I just got nothing to play here. It's not a terrible choice to be like, let's throw him into I wouldn't really love it in like a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, but like a 3 wide receiver league. If you threw him into a wide receiver spot when you really needed to, and he racked up like 5 for 50, you'd probably be okay with that on the Thursday night game. So you can, but he's still going to project in like the wide receiver 40 to 50 range, so you definitely don't have to, and then no one else. Broncos at Texans, first game on Sunday, 1 o'clock again. We're not having any of the 9 a.m. kickoffs, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. But lowest scoring game on the week, and interesting too because it's a dome game, so it's not even because there's weather conditions. 39.5-point total. I think it's the only game below a 40.5-point total this week. Texans actually 1.5-point home favorites in this one. I mentioned it last week, but my model loved the Texans last week, loves them again this week. It thinks they're one of the more underrated teams in the NFL. It seems like the betting markets agree with that too, because if you look at like pick'em contests, 80% of people are picking Denver when you just say straight up who's going to win. But again, in the betting markets with my model, Texans are favored this week. So market likes Denver, models like Texan side. For the Denver side, it's obviously a bad matchup. You are playing one of the best defenses in the league. You are on the road, so they don't get that home crowd. You are an underdog. So not good. And the overall game environment is also bad. So it's not a spot where it's like they have a good defense and a good offense. And, maybe the offense gets rolling and they're forced to kind of catch up. The odds are this game's going to play out relatively close, but also relatively low scoring. And so we're not looking at this game for a bunch of high-end outcomes. Texans, horrible matchup for quarterbacks and wide receivers. Slightly less horrible, but still a really bad matchup for running backs and tight ends. Not only do the Texans really limit efficiency to every position, but also every position sees lower volume than expected as well. So you're seeing low volume and low efficiency on that volume. I'd be fine fading every single Broncos player. The best plays are Dobbins and Sutton. Right now, Dobbins is my running back 28, Sutton, wide receiver 29. You can play either one of them, but neither one is that amazing of a play. Also, I know Harvey went off last week, but that was just based off a lot of touchdowns. You obviously can't predict as many touchdowns as he scored on his few touches as he had. There's a pretty big difference as well between the Cowboys defense last week and the Texans defense this week. So I really don't want to play anyone here. Even Bo Nix, who was great last week, he projected well last week, not projecting as well this week. So there's no real good plays on the Denver side, but again, you can play Dobbins, you can play Sutton, just know the floor is very low on both, and the ceiling's not that high. Then on the Texans side, they also, of course, have a very bad matchup, very bad game environment as well. There's a reason, again, that you have two relatively decent offenses with a close spread here in a dome, still having 39.5. It's because both defenses are very good. For the Texans, I hate the spot for Nico Collins, but he's a tough guy to bench. You kind of have to just play him. He's not going to project as like a top 15 wide receiver that he will most weeks. But unless you have, 3 clear top 15 wide receivers, you probably just play Nico Collins, understand you're probably not getting 100 and a touchdown, but also understand he's the most likely player on the team to score, and he's, the player that they're going to have to rely on, and hopefully he can rack up, like 4 for 70 and have a stat line like that. But yeah, he's only like in that wide receiver 20 to 23 range right now. It might bump up a little bit higher, but he's like a low-end wide receiver too this week. Aside from Nico, though, I don't trust anyone. Like Woody Marks grades out okay, but I'm guessing his projection is going to drop a little bit as the season goes along. The volume isn't super bankable for him. Schultz grades out fine as a lower-end streaming option, but he also did last week, and he did absolutely nothing, even in a game where the offense went off. So it truly is just Nico. I wouldn't want to be playing anyone else, but if you had some players hurt or something like that at running back, and you had to play Marks at running back too, I suppose it's okay. But really just Nico on that side. It's not an appealing game overall. I would say sometimes, how I say, like, as a tiebreaker, play someone in this game. I would say as a tiebreaker, don't play someone in this game. Next up, we've got 49ers at Giants, 48.5 point total. 49ers, 2.5 point road favorites. For the 49ers, a lot depends on the status of Purdy and Pearsall. To my knowledge, we don't know the outcome yet. I doubt we know their status until Friday or even Saturday night. But of course, I will adjust the projections and you can just check those. The Giants are a positive spot, so they don't have that great of a defense. Even though they're on the road, the 49ers are favorites this week. It's a positive matchup for both running backs and receivers. And so obviously start CMC, definitely start George Kittle, and then we'll just see with the rest, right? If Purdy's able to play, it is a very good spot. He will have the risk of a setback, but if you had to stream someone, he would grade out pretty well. If Pearsall is out there, he would also project well, but then it'll depend on the news. Is he limited in any way? In which case, you probably don't play him if he's limited, but then it also takes away from Jawan. So again, there's so many moving parts here. Everyone gets a downgrade if it's Mac Jones instead of Purdy, but with all the moving parts, just check the rankings. But, again, if Purdy plays, it's a boost. If Pearsall plays, it's a boost. And either way, play Kittle, play McCaffrey. For the Giants side, no Scatterbo means that Tyron Tracy Jr. is going to be the lead back with Singletary mixing in. The 49ers have struggled a little bit more than expected on defense this season. I do think they'll figure it out. So this isn't a defense where it's like there's zero talent, zero good coaching, and it's going to be bad all season. They are acquiring talent through the trade market right now, and they have great coaching. And the scheme is going to be good if the players can figure themselves out. So I think as we get into the later portion of the season, they'll turn from like a somewhat attackable defense to maybe a defense we're even avoiding. But right now, I would say it's neutral to positive for the Giants. Tyron Tracy Jr., running back 2. this week, especially if you spent up on him. You spent like $30, $40 in Fab. You're not putting him on your bench. Like, put him into running back 2. There is some variance for his projection because we haven't seen it yet this season, but he's coming in right now as a running back 15. I think it's pretty clear that he's a better running back than Devin Singletary. I think he's going to have, a couple dump offs, decent volume on the ground, decent chance of scoring in the red zone. And so if you had him, I would play him at running back 2. And if you had 2 good running backs, I'd put him in the flex spot. Like, I'd figure out a way to play him this weekend. I also think if you've been rolling with Dart, I don't think you have to go away from him. It's not great that, like, first they lose Neighbors, and so that takes away from his ceiling. But then he was still playing great. But now they lose Scadaboo, and it's like, okay, that hurts him on the ground. That hurts his like outlet in the receiving game. And maybe it makes this offense a little bit worse overall. And it's like, how many players can they really lose before Dart stops playing really well and stops producing in fantasy? If they lose Wandell, if they lose Slayton, I'm going to start being concerned that like Dart can't hold everything together with all these injuries. But for right now, he's been fantastic. And if anything, maybe losing Scadaboo just makes it a little bit more likely that he scores a rushing touchdown. Like, he loves to run the ball when they get close, but they were looking at Scadaboo and being like, well, you're a bowling ball. You can just easily run in every play here. If they don't have that, and maybe they don't trust Tyron J.C. Jr. quite as much as Scadaboo at the goal line, or yeah, I said that right. They don't trust him quite as much as Scadaboo. Maybe sometimes instead of giving, Dart's going to take some of these read options and run it in. So that's bad news for Chase Jr., but again, you're still playing him. But maybe just what keeps Dart in that general like 9 to 15 range in pretty much any matchup. And again, this matchup is not one that I'm fearing right now. So if you've been using him, just keep using him. Tough call at wide receiver. I don't fully trust it, but right now, Wandell, wide receiver 24, Slayton, wide receiver 38. I can't say I would be like excited to play either one of them, but both are viable. Slayton would look a lot better in people's minds had he hit on that long touchdown last week. And he did. It wasn't like a near miss. Like, he caught the ball, scored the touchdown. It was a very, very ticky-tack OPI. Like, OPI sometimes for offense, it feels so random because there's so often you watch a play and the offensive player just like tackles the corner and they're like, nope, didn't see anything there. And then sometimes there's like a slight hand fight where they're like the last one to push a little bit and then they call it. It just feels like they call it at random times whenever they feel like it. And that unfortunately was one of the random times where they felt like calling it. So Slayton should have had a very long touchdown last week. Again, people would feel better about playing him this week had that occurred, and maybe feel better about Dart as well. But yeah, I think you can play Slayton. I think you can play Wandell. Wandell projects better than Slayton. And then no wide receiver I'd want on this team. Next up, we've got Colts at Steelers. A pretty high 50.5 point total. Colts 3-point road favorites. I feel like if you looked at like the games earlier in the season, right? Maybe before the season even started, you would not have circled this game as one of the 50-point totals on the week. But the Colts have just been playing so well. The Steelers have been playing well enough on offense, and their defense has been super bad that, yeah, the 50.5 point total makes sense. For the Colts, JT is running away with Offensive Player of the Year. I hope he wins MVP as well. Usually they don't give it to a running back, but right now, I mean, obviously you're going to have like Mahomes in the mix. Obviously Josh Allen will probably always be in the mix, but realistically, if this kid's going to score like 25 touchdowns, I don't know. I think he should be MVP favorite right now, but he's not because they never give it to running back. Colts are really just the best team in the NFL right now, and definitely the best offense in the NFL. Their average margin of victory is 14.5 points right now. So you are starting Daniel Jones. You're starting Jonathan Taylor, Pittman. Tyler Warren is in the eruption spot of all eruption spots. Like, every single tight end in the world plays well against Pittsburgh. So he's going off this weekend. You could throw Alec Pierce in there. You could throw Josh Downs in there. Obviously, I've just listed off a lot of names. And even if the Colts score 30, 34 points, it is absolutely possible that multiple players listed there just don't have that great of a game because they don't score a touchdown. But this team has been playing so well that I think, again, you're definitely starting Jones, JT, Pittman, and Warren. And if you had to, in a deeper format, or if you had a lot of buys and injuries, play Pierce or Josh Downs, I think there are much worse plays this weekend, especially maybe Downs, because the spread is close, so it shouldn't be a blowout where they're like not using 3 wide receiver sets. And also, historically, for years now, the Steelers just cannot defend slot wide receivers. And so, I don't know, he's set up pretty well. There's merit definitely to playing Pierce and Downs, but obviously neither one of them are must starts. Then on the Steelers side, they're probably going to be trailing. It's a relatively close spread again. I think the Colts win easily here, but it's a close spread. Colts are a great matchup for wide receivers. It sets up like a spiked week for DK Metcalf. It's annoying that they never give him that elite usage. Even if they're trailing, you should never expect like monster target totals for DK Metcalf, but you're definitely starting him. You're definitely starting Warren as a running back too. Beyond those two, though, there's nothing that appealing. The tight ends split the usage 3 ways. It makes it really difficult to trust any of them. If it's like, even if they're giving their tight ends some of the best usage in the NFL overall, when you chunk it into 3, when some other tight end groups are chunking it into like only 1. There's some tight end groups where they're getting like 90 to 100% of the usage. These guys are splitting it 3 ways. It just makes it really difficult to trust any of them. Roman Wilson is also emerging as an option. There's a chance he overtakes Calvin Austin at some point. I suppose, so don't play either one of them. You could maybe stream Aaron Rodgers, but my guess is you probably have a different quarterback option. He's fine. I think he's going to project like okay, probably in that like 12 to 18 range where it's like everyone's viable. You're hoping you pick the one that passes for 2 touchdowns and maybe you get lucky and there's 3 in there. But there's nothing about this week that's like gotta play Aaron Rodgers. Next up, we've got Panthers at Packers, 44.5 point total. Packers 7.5 point home favorites. For the Panthers, Green Bay has a really, really strong defense and they play better at home. So we're not looking at secondary pieces in this spot. Not that we're ever really looking at secondary pieces on the Panthers. Coaching staff finally came out and said, Rico's going to be a starter now. Tough part is, until we actually see that play out, what does it mean, right? They said they're going to use him more. They said he's the starter. Does that just mean 55-45? Does it mean 60-40, 70-30? My guess, given that Chuba's a team captain, that the team really likes him, fan base is turning on him, but still likes him for the most part. Like, my guess because of that is that like it's really just Rico gets the first drive instead of Chuba, and that it pretty much plays out as it did before. But there's optimism here, and so I'd play Rico as a running back 2. I would not play Chuba. He's like a running back 4 this week. I reserve the right to change that ranking, and I will if we get news. I believe beat reporters will probably ask them, and at some point I'm hoping we get some sort of more concrete, like, oh, this is the expectation. It's not just Rico starting. Maybe it's Rico getting the lion's share of the carries or something like that. Some sort of report that can give us an indication of if it's 55-45 or 70-30, because there's a very big difference between those two when you're playing a really good defense. We're going to need a bigger split for Rico to pay off if we're at Green Bay in a very likely trailing game script. So Rico, I think, still is running back 2, but definitely not like a locked and loaded top 15 option. Only other play is Tet. Right now I have him as a wide receiver 19. I believe Bryce Young's going to be back this week. I said last week it was probably a lateral move going from Bryce Young to Dalton. Dalton theoretically was good for our shares of Tet because he gave him like a 40-something% target share. You like that when he hyper-focuses on him, but he was so bad. He was pathetic. So Bryce Young at least gives them a better chance to like stay in the game, sustain drives, score touchdowns, things like that. So I think, again, it probably is lateral, but you're not like, oh no, Bryce is back. It's the same, right? It doesn't really matter that much. Difficult matchup. You're not expecting Tet to have like 100 and score, but he's a great wide receiver that should probably just be in your wide receiver 2 spot every week. Then the Panthers side, or the Packers side, excuse me. Relatively easy, right? It's the same as most weeks. Love, Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, all clear must starts. Dobbs, okay in the flex spot. I'd probably bench everyone else. Even Dobbs, though, like, I might drop the projection a little bit just because Christian Watson mixed in a lot more than I expected him to last week. And despite what we saw from Buffalo last week and just absolutely destroying the Panthers, Carolina does not have a bad defense. And they don't have as bad of a defense as they had last season. So, while this is a home spot, right, Green Bay always plays well at home. And while the Panthers are still not one of the better defenses in the NFL, it's not like some smash spot for everyone on this team. And Christian Watson clearly is trusted to have a decent role on the offense. And when you say you have Jacobs and you have Tucker Kraft playing really well, it's like you're still going to use Golden. You're still going to do Savion Williams design plays. You're still going to have plays to Watson. And so you start to run through all of the players that are going to get a minimum of like 3 looks this week. And you start to run out of opportunities on the team. And so I think Dobbs is their best wide receiver and the one that I would play, but I don't think he's a must start by any means. I also think this really just raises the floor and the ceiling of Jordan Love in a lot of these spots. Like as they get healthier at wide receiver, as they add in especially deep playmakers, it just makes the floor and the ceiling great because they're going to pass the ball at an okay rate. He's going to have options to hit for 30, 40, 50-yard chunk plays. Right now, he's my quarterback 7. I mean, the Packers have scored at least 27 points in all but one game this season. They have 2 games over 34. This is a very good offense, and if the touchdowns flow his way for Jordan Love, he can have a really high ceiling in fantasy. Next up, we have what'll hopefully be a very good game between the Vikings and the Lions. 48.5 point total. Lions 8.5 point home favorites. For the Vikings, we're back to a split for the running backs. They're also 8.5 point road underdogs. Doesn't exactly set up like a Jordan Mason game. I feel like either running back could score. They could just get inside the 10-yard line, not trust McCarthy, and run the ball a bunch with either running back. And it would really just come down to who's on the field at that point, unless it's like a chunk gain. They get down inside the 5 or like first and goal from the 1. They would probably bring in Jordan Mason at that point. But odds are, if the running back you start doesn't score, you're probably not going to be that excited with the production. So both are more so running back 3s and running back 2s for me this week. This is a spot that leans more towards Aaron Jones due to game script, right? If Minnesota falls behind, it's an 8.5 point spread here. The expectation is that they'll at least be trailing by a little bit, but they could be trailing by 2 touchdowns at some point. If that ever happens, they're not establishing the run anymore with Jordan Mason. It's going to be Aaron Jones a lot more. He's also 1 more week removed from injury. So there's a lot of variance here. Again, I would play Aaron Jones over Jordan Mason, but I don't think either one of them are that great of plays. I am expecting McCarthy back this week. We only have 2 games of data to go off, so we don't truly know how good he is. I think the market is kind of assuming that he's bad. I don't know that that's the case. He had 1 bad game against an Atlanta team that's been pretty good. I mean, they had Josh Allen had the worst game against them. Like a lot of quarterbacks have not done that good against the Falcons. So it could just be that he had 1 game where people were pumped about him, 1 game against a tough defense, and that he's really not that bad of a quarterback. And all things being equal, Carson Wentz was not that good either. So I think Jefferson's an auto start. I think Addison is a good flex play. I think you can absolutely stream TJ Hawkinson. I wouldn't feel bad starting any of those 3. You should never feel bad starting really Jefferson or Addison. They're both very good players, very high upside, and the red zone role for Addison is very strong. I also feel decent that like they're going to have to throw the ball. It is incredibly unlikely that Minnesota gets up on the road, that Jordan Mason is ripping off 15-yard plays every other play, and that they run for 200 yards and win this game without throwing. They're going to have to throw the ball at some point, and there's not that many players on this team that are getting targets. So I probably wouldn't stream McCarthy, but he's a very strong stash. If he, comes out this week and looks good, he's got a great rest of season schedule. He's mobile. He's got a great coaching staff. Like the upside is absolutely there in fantasy. So wouldn't play him this week. But if you were looking for someone rest of season and you haven't figured out quarterback yet, he's someone that I would put on my bench. On the Lions side, I mean, we know what to do. Like Minnesota has a very strong defense, but this is Detroit at home with a very high team total, which they always will have at home. You're starting Gibbs. You're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Laporta is a great play. He's got the best matchup on the team. I'd be starting him if you had him. Monty and JMO are tougher calls. Right now, Monty's been running back 20. JMO, wide receiver 32. If the spread plays out this way and they are winning late in the game, it sets up like a game where Monty should get usage in the second half, but there's still some variance to Monty's projection. Like, there's still a lot of spots where like Gibbs is getting a ton of workload. He's the one that scores the touchdowns, and sure, they get up in the second half, but Detroit's never a team that's just going to sit there and run the ball with Monty 15 times in a row. Like that's just not going to happen. So there is still some fragility here where he could have like 10 carries for 40 yards, not score, have 2 receptions for 10 yards, and you're like, wow, that was a very disappointing day from Dave Montgomery. So that's still in his range of outcomes, but it's a spot where you would expect an okay performance from him. JMO I don't like as much. Wide receivers have the toughest matchup against the Vikings. The volume just hasn't really been there this season. He's got 2 good games and 5 duds. Pretty impossible also to predict when those spikes are coming. They're not in very obvious spots. It truly just is, does he hit on the 30 or 40 yard play downfield? We can't be shocked when that happens. He's always going to get the opportunity to do so, but he's just a boom bust flex play. He's someone that if you are an underdog, you put in the flex spot, you pray he hits for that 60-yard touchdown, and when he doesn't, you're like, well, it was better than taking 9 or 10 points from someone else and definitely losing by 10 or 11, right? It's someone that if you want the upside, it's there, but understand that he could very easily go out there and have 3 fantasy points. And then for Goff, he's fine to stream. Just you got to understand he's also touchdown dependent, right? There are going to be games where the Lions score 30. They score 3 touchdowns and 2 come on the ground. He has 150 yards and a touchdown. Or games where all the touchdowns come on the ground, even though he has 250 passing, he has no touchdowns, no rushing yards, and you're like, wow, that's disappointing. But there's also going to be games where they score 30 and he has all 4 passing touchdowns, right? They can score 31, 4 passing touchdowns, and you're like, why did I bench Jared Goff? There's a lot of randomness here. You just don't know where the touchdowns will be coming. And so when they're home, when the team total is high and when the other team has the capability of pushing them, I like him, and that's the case this week. You can definitely stream him. Next up, we've got Chargers at Titans, 43.5 point total. Chargers 9.5 point road favorites. For the Chargers, smash spot. For the running backs, still a very positive one for the wide receivers. The Chargers should have no problem building a lean. They should find success running the ball in the second half, especially with their offensive line more healthy. However, everyone's in play, but it's the same thing as the Colts last week. Now, the Colts crushed last week, but I don't think Tyler Warren had that great of a game, but for the most part, they crushed because the touchdowns were distributed relatively decently and they scored 1 million points. It is possible that the Chargers scored 3 touchdowns. It's possible they scored 4 touchdowns, but if you say everyone's a start, that means that Ladd is a start, Keenan is a start, Quentin's a start, Gadsden's a start, Vidal's a start, Herbert's a start, and you start being like, wait a minute, if everyone gets a touchdown, we're looking at like 5 or 6 touchdowns here, and that's probably optimistic to think it's going to happen. So I don't think it's just a guarantee you start everyone, but Herbert, Vidal, Ladd, Gadsden, the volume expectation and the touchdown upside is strong enough to where I think you have to put all of them into starting lineup. Keenan, usually a volume-based play, and the volume shouldn't be that amazing this week, so only more so a flex play for me. And then Quentin is in that same mold as JMO, where you got to understand Quentin could have 1 catch for 10 yards, and you're very disappointed for like a 3rd, 4th consecutive week. But he could also go out there, connect on the deep ball, connect in the red zone, and you're happy about it. The one caveat I have there is that like Trey Harris is playing more and more, and Trey Harris has been like thrown onto the field in the red zone. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Like there's a lot of plays where you look up and you're like, you know, you had their 3 wide receivers, Ladd, Keenan, and Quentin on the field. And then all of a sudden they take all of them off. They go to a 1 wide receiver set with Trey Harris. And you're like, what? Like you're like, well, why Trey Harris? Why is he the one out there? And he scores a touchdown on something like that last week. And so if that's going to occur, that was a big part of Quentin's projection, was that he was featured in the red zone. If that is not going to happen anymore, and now he's only that boom bust play, he turns into Jameson Williams, who's a play that's going to bust more than he doesn't. So possibly hits, but I have no idea if that's going to happen. So you kind of got to just roll the dice on that one. On the Titans side, you can bench everyone if you want. Pollard and Spears are playable as running back 3s. I played Spears last week. I got very lucky winning my matchup, honestly, because he scored the touchdown. Although, to be fair, he almost scored the touchdown earlier that then didn't. So I feel like it evened out. But yeah, like very low end 2s, high end running back 3s. Hopefully they trade Pollard and then we can actually play Spears at running back 2 every week. Until that happens, though, you know, these 2 are splitting touches on a team projected to score like less than 18 every single week, even at home. I don't love them. No one else is appealing on the Titans side. You can throw a dart out there on Ellick, on DK, right? I don't think Ridley's going to play again. They got Lockett's now on the Raiders. No other wide receiver is emerging. And so if you were in a deep league, if your wide receiver room was trash, if you had like a 3 wide receiver, 2 flex league, things like that, where you're extending past your normal like top 25 you want to play, they're not bad. DK's playing very well. He's honestly the one I'd probably be a little bit more excited about right now. We were excited about Ellick to start the year because he was playing great right from the get-go, but he's kind of taken a step back and it's been more DK looking better. But this is still just not, like, the volume expectation is not that great. The chances either one of them score a touchdown isn't that great. And so they're fine, but neither one are going to project as like top 40. Maybe they end up in that 40 to 50 range. And if that's a range you're looking at, I don't hate either one of them, but they're not going to be top 40 wide receiver plays. So for most of you, you don't need to look at them. Next up, we've got Falcons at Patriots, 44.5 point total. Patriots, 5.5 point home favorites. For the Falcons, no player has hit 50 rushing yards against the Patriots so far this season, but I do think Bijan's probably going to be the first to do so this weekend. It's obviously a terrible matchup for him, but under no circumstance are you benching him. So it's more so like don't play him in DFS probably. Definitely don't play Algier as well. We'll see if Penix is able to play this weekend. Cousins looked horrible. I saw some people saying that like Cousins didn't look that bad. Cousins looked absolutely terrible last weekend. Now, if he started and you had Drake London back, that's obviously going to help. But he could not throw the ball more than 5 yards downfield. He was just dinking and dumping. It would be like 4th and 10, and he'd instantly chuck the ball like 1 yard into the flat when there's like no blocking out there. Like it was just, he was not pushing the ball at all downfield. You do not want him starting on this team, and you do not want to trade for him if you're another team in the NFL. And that was against the Dolphins, who are not a defense we're exactly fearing. So you don't want Cousins starting here. And I get, okay, that was against the Dolphins. That was at home, indoors against the Dolphins, right? This is on the road, outdoors in New England. This is not a good spot for the Falcons. You really, really, really want Penix starting in this spot. I think he's probably going to, but we'll see. But yeah, play Bijan, play London. I really just don't want to go too much past that. Patriots are an okay spot for tight ends. And if you got Penix back, I'd be fine playing Pitts as like a low-end one. I don't think Pitts would have like a crazy good day, but I wouldn't be shocked if he racked up like 6 for 70, and maybe he ends up in the end zone. Doesn't take that much to be good at tight end, so I'd be fine streaming Pitts this week. On the Patriots side, May is playing out of his mind. I don't see how you don't play him if you have him right now. The Falcons do have one of the stronger defenses, and they didn't show that last week, right? Like, I know I brought up earlier being like, oh, the Falcons have shut down some good teams. I don't know what happened. Like, the Falcons are also just such a variant team where like they will play super well against a really good team, and then they'll just lay the biggest goose egg in the world against teams that they should beat by 14 points. Like, it just, you never know what to happen. It really is playing to the competition. So maybe they play up to the Patriots this weekend. But even if they do that, I just don't see how you bench Drake May. I think Diggs probably needs to be played at wide receiver 2 as well. He has cooled off a bit since those like 2 breakout games, but the usage is strong. The red zone role is there. The connection is great between him and May. So I think just play him at wide receiver 2. Maybe he doesn't drop a nuke, but like he's a very reliable piece. He's someone you can trust the production from. Very strong floor. I'd be shocked if he had like 1 catch for 9 yards. So I would just play him at wide receiver 2 every week. Outside of Diggs though, I mean, it does get a little bit thinner. It's a little difficult to trust either one of the running backs. It's obviously Stevenson over Henderson right now. Until the coaching staff trusts Henderson, you can't play him. They might not trust him until next season, especially with the fumble he had this last week. But to be fair, every single running back on New England has been fumbling. But yeah, neither one of them project that great of plays, but they're home favorites. And the Falcons just got absolutely destroyed by the Dolphins, and the Patriots are a better offense than Dolphins. Hunter Henry, just a streaming tight end. You're just praying for a touchdown. I like Kayshon Boutte. He's obviously getting a bit lucky both with touchdowns and with downfield receptions, but he's playing so well that you could see the role expand. He did well last week when Matt Collins still had a good game. So like there is volume to go around here. I feel like I don't hate him as a wide receiver 2 this week, but for most of you, again, 8, 10, even 12 team leagues, he better be like that like low end 2 that you're throwing in there because you don't have other options. As you extend into 3 wide receiver leagues, I like him at wide receiver 3. As you extend into 14 to 16 team leagues, I like him in general, maybe a second flex spot. There's going to be a week coming up where he doesn't score a touchdown and it's not as great, but he's playing so well that you could also see the role expand. So he's someone that I would definitely be fine playing. Going to project in that like 40 to 45 range for wide receiver. Final 1 o'clock game is going to be Bears at Bengals, 51.5 point total. Bears 3-point road favorites. For the Bears, great spot. The Bengals have a really bad defense. The Jets just scored 39 points against them, even without Garrett Wilson. Everyone is set up really well here. And unfortunately for the Bengals, it's a great spot for running backs, which is bad news against the Bears, right? Like the Bears have been super run heavy ever since week 1, exceptionally run heavy since their bye. Even last week, their pass rate over expectation was neutral and they lost by 2 touchdowns. It was a spot where you would expect the Bears to lean very pass heavy, and they didn't. So Chicago's game plan here is going to be run the ball as much as possible, utilize Swift, utilize Manungai, and just try to win the game on the ground, throwing to these backs, everything. Just utilize the running backs a ton, utilize play action on top of that, downfield to Odunze. That's how I see things playing out. Swift isn't like a top 5 running back or anything, but he's a very good play. You got to play him if you have him. And then I would say Monangai, like he's going to project in that running back like 30 to 35 range. If you've got injuries, I'm totally fine playing Monangai at that running back 2 spot. Understand that he's still a backup running back, and so the usage might not be amazing, but he's been playing almost half the snaps most weeks. He's been getting red zone usage. He's been getting passing down snaps, and he's running routes out there. Like the spot is great for him, and the usage is there. So honestly, I have him in Dynasty. I might be playing him. I mean, we have 3 flex spots, so I have more opportunities to play him, but I might be playing him this weekend. For everyone else, Odunze is a must start. DJ Moore is fine. They're probably not going to have Burden. If they do have Burden back this week, or not miss the week, I guess. I don't like DJ Moore as much. But if Burden's going to be out, I like DJ Moore a decent amount. He's my wide receiver 36 right now. I'd be fine playing him as a super low end 2, but more ideally wide receiver 3 or flex. And then I probably wouldn't play the tight ends. Caleb is fine. I don't have a super strong take on him. The Bears being so run heavy is hurting him, of course, because he's not throwing the ball, right? You don't get points when the running backs score them, at least when it's on the ground. But the Bengals can't stop anyone. And so there's a chance that Chicago goes in there, they score 30, 34 points, and Caleb has a really strong day because maybe the touchdowns finally don't come on the ground. My gut says he's a fine streaming option. He will not project as a top 7 quarterback, but he will probably project in that quarterback 9 to 12 range where you're totally fine playing him. But again, understand it's a great spot for the running backs, and if Chicago gets up, they want to lean run heavy. Then for the Bengals side, obviously start Jamar Chase, but surprisingly, no one else is that amazing of a play. The only skill players you're looking at are Chase Brown and T. Higgins, but such an insane amount of the volume goes to Jamar Chase that these two do have very low floors, much lower floors than you would think. I have T right now, 1 spot ahead of DJ Moore in the rankings as the wide receiver 35. This is also a very strong game environment. And so, especially if the Bears offense gets going, they're clicking, they're scoring touchdowns at a high rate and just scoring basically on any drive. We could see this game shoot out. We could see this team play out really aggressive. So my lean is if you have T, you have Chase Brown, I would probably play them. But for many of you, you have great wide receiver rooms, right? A lot of you have 4 top 30 wide receivers. And if that's the case, T probably won't make the cut. But if it's close, I don't know. I feel like I would kind of lean in his direction. One thing I will say also, though, is that the Bears are not a good matchup overall for wide receivers, but there's a huge split. They're a fantastic matchup for slot wide receivers and a horrible, probably the worst matchup in the NFL for outside wide receivers. Well, Jamar is going to take those slot snaps and T is going to be on the outside. So it's not a good spot for T. My hope is that you're totally fine. My wide receiver room's awesome. We can just slot him into the bench spot here for a week and get it going back next week. But if you had to play him, it's still a spot where they might drop back 40 plus times. And so T could still have a good game, could still score a touchdown, a tough matchup. And I probably wouldn't play Flacco. He just doesn't project that well this week. Fine to stream, but I don't love him this week. First 4 o'clock game is going to be Jaguars at Raiders, 44.5 point total. Jaguars 3-point road favorites. For the Jaguars, good spot. They're coming off bye. The Raiders are coming off bye too, but they're coming off bye. The Raiders team can be attacked both on the ground and through the air, so they're not a funnel to either one. Only tight ends have a negative matchup. That's not too much of a problem for the Jaguars. It definitely seems like they want to get Travis Hunter going, and at this point, I would expect him to be a pretty solid play in the flex spot every week. Very good play at wide receiver 3. I think there's a chance every week moving forward you can use him at wide receiver 2. Overall, the Jaguars are pretty easy, right? Play ETN running back 2. Play Brian Thomas Jr. at running back 2 or wide receiver 2. Play Travis Hunter in the flex spot and pretty much bench everyone else. I do think there's some risk. It's a small amount. I don't think it's that much, but some risk that Tootin sees his role expand just a little bit post-bye and that ETN, who hasn't done anything to lose the job, but just loses some of the job. I'm not expecting a big role shift. I would definitely not expect Tootin to take over, but Tootin remains a stash on benches. I know he hasn't really hit yet. Stash him. Injury or just taking over is absolutely a possibility. And if that happens, he's going to be a great play in fantasy, but don't play him. And I wouldn't stream Lawrence or the tight ends. On the Raiders side, again, they're also coming off bye. And while they're underdogs, it's only by 3 points. So it's a winnable game for the Raiders. They're also at home. The Jaguars defense is mostly neutral overall. They're not a bad defense, but they're not one that we're fearing. You're absolutely playing Genty. You're absolutely playing Brock Bowers if you have them. But aside from those two, I don't really love any other Raiders players. The wide receivers' target shares are going to fall off big time with Bowers back. Lockett's even joining the team. Pete Carroll loves him, trusts him out there. So I don't love the wide receiver target shares. Feel like until Myers is traded, I don't know if we can start the wide receivers on this team, or at least we can't trust it this week. Like maybe Bowers returning is what Geno needed to not look like the worst quarterback in the NFL, and that they'll now sustain drives. They'll now get into the red zone more. They'll score more touchdowns, which is a benefit to everyone. But like you've got 2 rookie wide receivers that could see bumps in playing time. Like there's too many wide receivers on this team where none of them are that amazing, but all of them get usage. All of them have some level of talent to where I don't trust any of them on a bad offense when you also have Genty and Brock Bowers there. So I don't know that I would play anyone that is not Genty or Brock Bowers. Next up, we've got the Saints at the Rams, 43.5 point total. Rams, massive 14-point home favorites. For the Saints, it's a horrible spot. You're 2 touchdown road underdogs against a very strong Rams defense that's also coming off bye. And now you have Tyler Shuck starting, who's definitely worse than Spencer Rattler. So I don't trust anyone on the Saints. I suppose Kamara is fine as a low-end running back 2. I suppose you could play Olave at wide receiver 3. Maybe Shaheed in like the second or third flex spot. But truly, I do not want to play anyone on the Saints this weekend. For the Rams side, Puka should return this week. Great. Start him, start Adam, start Kyron. I'm projecting over 3 touchdowns on average for the Rams here, meaning they have a very solid shot at scoring 4 touchdowns. There's no way you can bench any of those 3. And Stafford makes for a really good streaming option as well, since the odds he'll throw for 2 or more touchdowns is pretty decent in this spot. If you're super desperate, you're like, Nick, I'm in a 14-team league. I'm in a 16-team league. Maybe I'm in a 12-team league, but I am decimated at running back, and you need an upside shot here. Blake Corum is not the worst play in the world. He's only projecting as my running back 43. But if the Rams get up by 17, 20 points, you don't think it's possible he mixes in? They like to kind of switch off drives. If they're just crushing in the fourth quarter, maybe we get like an extra Blake Corum drive where he adds in a couple more carries than expected, adds on another target, and maybe scores a touchdown on that drive. I don't think you're playing at running back 2 in a normal circumstance where you're like, oh, is it Blake Corum or Rico Dowdle? It's obviously Rico Dowdle. It's obviously Tracy Jr. It's obviously Vidal. It's obviously Bam Knight, even over them. Like there's other plays that are definitely better. But Corum is not a bad play if you have nothing and you're like, is it Corum or like this third string running back, right? Well, Corum. But a 4 o'clock game is going to be the Chiefs at the Bills, crazy high, although not the highest of the week. 52.5 point total, Chiefs, 2-point road favorites. For the Chiefs, it's less than ideal playing at Buffalo, but this is the game of the week. And both of these sides are treating this as a playoff game, as a tiebreaker. You want to be playing people in this game. Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, clear must starts to me. And then I'd want to play Worthy in the flex spot. I would want Kareem Hunt at running back 2. I don't think Pacheco is going to play this week. And while Brashard Smith will get a couple more carries, a few more scheme targets, maybe Elijah Mitchell comes onto the field a little bit, he gets a few carries. It's going to be Kareem Hunt in short yardage at the goal line. The touchdown odds are very, very high. He's going to add in a couple receptions probably. He's going to add in okay early down usage to where you'll want to play him at running back 2, even against the Bills. Really, I would want to play a lot of these guys on the Kansas City side because we finally have a team that's going to push them, and this Kansas City offense looks awesome. If they're pushed in any way in the second half of games, they're going to have amazing upside every week. Then for the Buffalo side, pretty similar story, but we like the wide receivers a lot less. Josh Allen, start him. James Cook, start him. Kincaid's my tight end 14 right now. Shakir, Keon Coleman are going to project in that wide receiver 33 to 40 range. Shakir is starting to separate a little bit from Keon Coleman. And again, in a game like this, I do think that both of them carry enough of a ceiling to where like neither are going to project as top 25 options. Neither are projecting right now top 30, but if Kansas City gets going, we could see Josh Allen go into MVP mode and just start peppering these guys with targets, start increasing the efficiency, increasing the volume, and we get a 40-43 game here where we're like, why didn't we play everyone in this spot? So I do not think you have to play these wide receivers. I don't even think you have to play Dalton Kincaid. But if it's close, it's a game that could pop off, and you're going to want players in this game if they do. Sunday night game will be Seahawks at Commanders, 47.5-point total. Seahawks 3-point road favorites. For the Seahawks, this is a good spot against a pretty attackable Commanders defense. Jaden Daniels being back also kind of helps because it'll force them to be aggressive. There was a chance if Daniels were to miss that, Mariota's good, but maybe can't keep pace with Seattle, and they just go really run heavy in the second half, and this game kind of fizzles out. Unfortunately, though, there's not that many great plays on Seattle besides JSN. It's like JSN is the entire passing attack. You play him, but you can't play Cooper Kupp. Hopefully, Torrey Horton kind of steps up post-bye, but you can't play him. I don't think you can really play the tight end, so you're really only looking at JSN. Then you're looking at the running backs, right? Sharbs and Ken Walker both project as low-end running back too. You're going to get Ken Walker used more in between the 20s. You're going to get him be more efficient, look like the better running back. But then Charbonnet is going to step onto the field inside the 5-yard line and take the touchdown. So you're going to need a touchdown from farther out for Ken Walker. And then Charbonnet, you're not going to get many touches overall, but he's more likely to score a touchdown. So super frustrating usage. It's really annoying that they're doing that. And they have been hyping up Ken Walker. I think they get their fullback back this week, and they're very excited about that, increasing their efficiency as well. This is a good ground game. When they get going, they're going to crush. There's going to be games this season where we see the total usage on this team. We're like, whoa, these running backs combined for 175 yards and multiple scores. It hasn't quite clicked yet. It feels like it's trending in a positive direction, but it's frustrating because every time it feels like Ken Walker gets tackled at the 7-yard line, and then they bring Charbonnet in to finish things off. Now, to be fair, he's looked great. I mean, you can't deny that they give these short yardage looks to Charbonnet, and he keeps getting stuffed. And then all of a sudden, somehow the pile keeps moving. He stays up and he's scoring. So it's not like he's been bad and we're like, why aren't they at least trying Ken Walker? Nothing's working. Charbonnet's working at the goal line. So it makes sense that they're going in that direction. Again, it's just frustrating. Then for the Commanders side, Terry McLaurin's going to be out. He suffered a setback. That's really annoying as well. So Debo's a must start. Ertz is going to project in that general streaming range, the tight end 9 to 15. Pretty good option whenever one of the star wide receivers is missing, but you're going to need a touchdown, of course. But that's the case with pretty much any tight end that's not top 5. I hope we get word on any sort of limitation for Jaden Daniels. Right now, I'm assuming he's a full go. I don't think they'd throw him out there unless he was a full go, but it's still also possible they dial back the rushing just a little bit just to make sure he gets out of this game healthy. I have him in 2 leagues. I'm definitely starting him in one. It's a 16-team league, but I don't think I'm going to start him in the other one. I have Daniel Jones. I'll be honest, Daniel Jones has played so well, and he's in a good spot this week that I'm like, why risk it? So I'll play Jaden Daniels in one and Daniel Jones in the other. Also, I have to look into it more, but he's not projecting that well. Seattle has a great defense. We're still home. I still like the Commanders' offense, but right now I can't get the projection on Jaden Daniels that high. I'll look into why exactly that's happening. But I would say if you're like me, and especially you have another top 5 to 7 or 5 to 7 quarterback, or you have Daniel Jones, I think there's still merit to not playing Jaden Daniels, especially if we don't know, but I think we're going to know. Definitely don't risk it unless you have Marcus Mariota. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's merit to benching him. But for most of you, if you don't have another option, if your other option is just some random streaming quarterback, just play Jaden Daniels. Then for the running backs, it's not a great matchup. But I still view JCM as a low-end running back too, just one with a lower floor. If the Commanders do fall behind this week, he's not going to have a good game. But if they stay competitive, he probably will have a decent one. It's a good spot for receiving for running backs. Unfortunately, they don't really give JCM receptions, but maybe they will this week. Give him 2 or 3 dump offs. That would really help. Finally, Monday night game, highest total of the week. Cardinals at Cowboys, 53.5-point total. That is crazy high. Cowboys 2.5-point home favorites. For the Cardinals, I'm pretty sure Kyler's going to get the start over Brissett. They've been saying for a while now that he's the starter when healthy. It kind of seems like he's healthy, but maybe they kind of pull a Vikings and they're like, oh, he's not ready to return yet. He is, but we're not going to tell you who he is. We're going to start Brissett until he plays bad, and we're going to put Kyler back out there. The thing is, this isn't like a Carson Wentz situation where like Carson Wentz went out there and he played horrible. I don't think Brissett would play bad. I think you could play Brissett rest of season and you'd win more games than if you played Kyler rest season. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm biased because I really like Jacoby Brissett, but it's been pretty undeniable that in his start so far, he's looked good and he's produced better than Kyler. They've been more competitive in those games than they would have been with Kyler at quarterback. With that being said, we don't know. It's also very risky. If you have Kyler and we don't know by Sunday, you do not play him unless you have Brissett. Like if you want to just like roster Brissett and Kyler and be like, I'm just going to play the starter, go for it. But if like your backup quarterback is playing on Sunday and we don't know by Sunday if Kyler is starting, you do not risk it with Kyler. You play the backup quarterback on Sunday. So you have to do that, but whichever quarterback starts is going to be a good play. It's a really high total. The crazy part about the total is like, take a team like the Chargers. The Chargers are 9.5 point favorites, and yet they're only projected for one more point than the Cardinals, who are 2.5 point underdogs. That's how good of a game environment this is. There's going to be so many points to go around. And let's be honest, they're 2.5 point underdogs. They could easily win this weekend. I don't think that they're going to, but they could. They could score into the 30s. And so you kind of want to be starting players on this team. I think Bam Knight is a good play at running back too. I think Marv projects well to hit for a deep play. It's a good matchup for him to hit deep downfield. I'd play him at wide receiver too. Obviously start Trey McBride. I don't know that I'd go too far after that, unless this is like a DFS lineup, unless this is like a very deep league, but play Knight, play Marv, play McBride, and honestly, whoever starts at quarterback is going to be a good play. Hopefully we know later in the week. Hopefully no one like Saturday night who's starting. Then for Dallas, also a very good spot. The Cardinals defense is mostly neutral, and Dallas always plays better at home. Dak, Javonte, Lamb, Pickens, all must starts. Ferg right now is my tight end 11. His target share has fallen off a cliff since CeeDee Lamb returned, and his ADOT has been so low all season that he's needed the heavy volume or a touchdown to pay off. Early in the year, he was getting all the touchdowns. He was getting heavy volume, so it didn't matter that his ADOT was super low. If the touchdowns are now going more to Pickens and Lamb and Javonte, and if the targets are now going away and we're not seeing as many, that opens up a very, very low floor like we saw last week for Ferguson. So I'm not panicking yet, but if we see another very low target game, I'm going to panic for Ferguson. So keep that in mind. But the game environment is so good that as a tiebreaker, play people in this spot. So I will continue updating the rankings as the week goes on, but please be sure to check the rankings Sunday morning on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, or on my app, which you can see in the description box below. Please be sure also to subscribe on YouTube or Spotify if you are new here. It really helps me out. That'll do it for this one. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next one.